How many of you have ever felt like you just can't get ahead in life? I mean, like life has made a punching bag out of your face. Have you ever felt like that? Like you get up in the morning and realize you have jury duty, and then you later on in the day you get a letter in the mail that says you need to renew the DMV registration on your car, but you have to smog it first. And then you go over and take your car over to get smogged, and then you find out it's not going to pass smog because it needs a repair. So you have to take it over to the shop, and you drive it over there, and there's a $150 diagnostic fee. And then they call you up later that day and tell you that $150 is nothing compared to what you're going to have to pay to get this thing fixed. And you realize, I have to pay the money because I have to get this thing fixed because the government is making me smog this thing. I have to have pass smog. So you give the car to the repair shop for 4 or 5 days, and then they call you up and they say, hey, it's finally ready. Come give us money. And so you go to the shop and you pull out that credit card because you don't have enough cash, and you put it down, and you're like, Lord, save me, help me here. And you pay the money and you get your key and you go to the car and you're like, at least it's fixed, right? We're going to get it smogged, we're going to get it taken care of. You turn it on and you realize it ain't fixed. Now you're frustrated. You turn it off and you get out of the car and you start walking back over to the shop, and you're trying to just consider, like, how am I going to represent Christ and at the same time just chew these guys out? And as you're walking towards the shop, you realize out of the corner of your eye, your car is rolling backwards straight into a tree. That wasn't the best day of my life. Oh my gosh, it was one of those moments that you just feel like I'm losing the battle. I'm losing my grip on all of the put-togetherness in my life, and I just feel like it's crumbling down on me. Have you ever felt that way? I mean, it's just one thing after another after another. It's like you're running a race that you'll never be able to win. It's like you're fighting a fight that you shouldn't have even started. It's like you're pushing towards a dream that can never be attained. I found a couple of quotes from people who expressed kind of those kind of feelings. I hear a couple of them. Every day is a losing battle in this war called life. My defenses have failed, my walls have fallen, and my soldiers have given up. At what point do I surrender? That's pretty bleak, right? Here's another one. Every thought is a battle. Every breath is a war. And I don't think I'm winning anymore. One last one, and the grammar's not too good on this, but you can see what's going on. I've seen how the world is. I'm only 17. We're fighting a losing battle. Hopefully there's a better life out there. Hark this up if you feel the same. You know, some people feel that way. But then there are other people who say, look on the bright side of things. I mean, things are going to get better. Never stop fighting. Don't give up the race. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling, right? Donald Trump once said this. He said, sometimes, I thought you'd like that. Sometimes by losing a battle, you find a new way to win the war. And that's all right. But if the battle that you're fighting is life, and you get to the end and you realize, I'm losing it, that's not a good place to be, right? Because when you get to the end of life, you're kind of done. It's game over. Where are you going to go from there? So maybe there is some reason for concern. In fact, I know there is. Most people are living a losing battle when it comes to life. They're running, they're stretching, they're clawing for things that they think are going to bring maybe security or maybe happiness or fulfillment, but all these things end up just leaving them high and dry. and just wanting more, something different. But the funny thing is this, that piece of the letter that Jared just read, Peter is talking to all these Christians whose lives were literally falling apart, right? We've talked about that. I mean, they're losing jobs, they're losing friends, they're losing family members, they're losing their homes, they're on the run, they're losing everything. And Peter says that, you know what, you're not fighting a losing battle. You know why? Because your hope is in the right place. So your hope wasn't in the job or the family or the friendships or the all of those things. Your hope wasn't in that. Your hope was in God. He says this in verse 18. He says, knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers. He says your forefathers, the people who have gone before you, they were caught up in this futile, this pointless, this worthless, this ineffective way of living. From generation to generation, they passed down this way of living. It was just completely worthless. It wasn't working. They were accomplishing all sorts of things. They were achieving so many different dreams that they had, but in the end, they didn't have anything of lasting value. Jesus said this in Matthew 16. He says this, what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? What will a man give in exchange for his soul? You know what he's saying you can pursue financial security, you can pursue pleasure, you can pursue meaningful relationships, self-significance, self-worth, maybe being the best that you can be or the most beautiful you can be, or fill in the blank. But what good is any of it? What good is any of it if you get to the end of your days and you realize that none of this stuff really mattered? You've heard it said you can't take it with you. But is any of this stuff at all going to help me in the long run? Did any of this prepare me for what lies ahead, for the eternity out there? Jesus once told a story about a very successful farmer. This guy had a bumper crop. It was just tremendous. It was more than he expected, more than he anticipated. And he had to build bigger and bigger barns just to store all of the product that he harvested. And he was just thinking, my ship has finally come in. He said, self, it's time for you to relax. Time for you to retire, eat, drink, be merry. You finally made it in life. Man, everyone wants to get to that point, don't they? They want to hit the right stocks so that they have the retirement they want to have, or they have they get the right job, or maybe you picked the right person to marry in life, and now it's going to be smooth sailing from here on out, like Jordan. You're longing to get that bumper crop in life. Or maybe that scholarship to that school. We want those big things where we can finally relax. And Jesus says this. He says, God's going to say this to you. Fool! This night, your soul is required of you. And the things you've prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. What a terrible thing to run after all of these different things. Be caught in this futile cycle of life where you're trying to grab up more and more and more, whatever it may be. And then in the end, you find out that none of them really mattered. None of it had any lasting value. That's actually worse than fighting a losing battle. That's actually fighting the wrong battle. It's kind of like, sitting down to take a final exam and then discovering that you studied exactly the wrong stuff. None of that is on the test. And you realize if you don't pass this thing, there's no way you're passing, right? There's no way you're graduating. Not a good place to be. That's what was going on with these forefathers that Peter's talking about. These futile ways. You know, a lot of their forefathers, they would have been like these guys. They would have been like the Pharisees of the day. You've heard of the Pharisees, many of you. These were the religious leaders of the day. These were the ones that took tradition and religion very seriously. These were the guys who were a lot like me growing up, who did all of the verses, all of the right things at church, said all of the right things, dressed the right way, didn't mess around with the wrong crowd, volunteered my time, and everyone looked at these guys, the way they dressed, the way they talked, the things that they had, the crowds that they hung out with, and they said, these guys are going places in life. Man, God must really love them. Man, they are just, they figured it out, man. You know what Jesus calls these people? Whitewashed tombs. He says in Matthew 23, you're like whitewashed tombs. Outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you also outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you're full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. When I was in junior high, I had a job. I was a homeschool kid, and so I got a job with a homeschool dad who ran a flooring business. And so, some evenings I'd get a phone call like 8 or 9 o'clock and say, all right, tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., I'm going to pick you up. I'm just like, oh, man, I don't know if I like this job anymore. But we'd go on these jobs, and we'd do tile, or we'd lay linoleum or carpet or anything like that. My job was usually the demo part of things. So I'd rip out the old stuff, and then I'd be scraping the floors and sweeping and all that kind of stuff. The grunt work. It wasn't easy, and the pay wasn't very good, but it was a job, and it's what my parents told me to do. I remember one job. We drove into this really wealthy community, this beautiful street, and all the houses were immaculate. You know, there was big old trees in the community. Every yard was meticulous, and we pull up this one house, and this house was no exception. It was just gorgeous. I remember thinking, this has got to be a good place to trick or treat. I'll bet this place gives out some good candy. And we went up to the door, and the owner wasn't home. I think we had the key. And we opened up the door, and I almost fell over at the stench that came out of this house. It was the most disgusting thing you can imagine. And you have to go in. It's my job, you know. So I put on my hazmat suit, and I just charging in. Now I had to go in with, you know, just my clothes, and I just like, you know, and then you stick your head out the door, and then go back in. And what we realized was that the owner had had a lot of pets for many years, and all of them lived in the house. You know what I mean? And we start pulling up the carpet, and the carpet is disintegrating in my hands as we're pulling it up from all of the pet stuff that had made its way onto the carpet. And get the carpet out. And now that the pad that's under the carpet, it was just yellow powder everywhere. Yeah, and some places were just like matted down. So now I'm scraping the stuff and breathing it in, and it was the grossest thing that I did on that job. And man, it just blew me away how such a beautiful house could be so disgusting inside. And that's exactly what Jesus is talking about. You can make yourself look so good on the outside. You can have all the cars, all the houses. You can even have all the spirituality. You can make yourself look good at church. You can donate tons of money. You can be involved in all the right programs. You can even know this book. But if your hope is in the wrong place, if your hope was in all of those things that you are trying to grab up for yourself, man, you're caught in the futile ways. This is what Peter's talking about. It doesn't fix anything to focus, to hope in your own accomplishments, to hope in your own ability to be good enough, or at least better than the person sitting next to you. That doesn't accomplish anything. Are you caught up in this kind of thinking, in this futile way of thinking? And it's so easy. It's so easy to look at the people around us and to just, man, if only I could have those talents. If only I could have that body. If only I could have that job, or that sense of humor, that personality, or maybe have those parents, or have those friends, or have that guy or that girl, that relationship, have that commitment to God that they have. And without even knowing it, we're caught up in the cycle of futile thinking, of thinking that all of these things are what we need. You know, the author of the book of Ecclesiastes was someone very powerful, very rich, one of the richest men on earth, actually. And he made it his pursuit in life to try out everything under the sun that people long to do, that people dream of, that people want to experience in life. And he wouldn't experience it all. Women, he had that. Riches, he had that. Power, he had that. And he goes on. Knowledge, he had that. And he went on and on and on, talking about all these things he had. And you know what his conclusion is? All of it was meaningless. He calls it like a chasing after the wind. You can't catch that thing. It's just, you grab it and it's wind. It's air. It's there, but I can't get it. It's just like, man, what a tragedy to finish life, to grab up all of these good things. And they are good. God gives so many of these things. They're gifts from him. But when our hope is in them, we've got into the cycle of futile thinking. What a sad thing to get to the end and to realize, it wasn't the right thing. My hope was in the wrong place. It doesn't measure up. It doesn't last. It doesn't have any real value. And it's being taken away from me. That's the ultimate bad day. But check out what Peter says here. He says, you were ransomed from the futile ways of your forefathers. You were ransomed. When we think of the word ransom, we're usually thinking of someone being held hostage, right? And someone is demanding money to get little Billy or little Jimmy or whoever it is back. I don't know why they're all boys, but so you have to pay money to get your son or daughter back. Either that or you're like Liam Neeson, you're just going to go take them all out, right? And I'm not paying no ransom, right? But for the average person, they're paying a ransom. These people that Peter is talking to, he's saying, you have been held hostage. You've been held hostage by humanity's bad ideas of how to live a meaningful life. This futile cycle of living, this thinking that your hope has to be in all of these different things. You're being held hostage by that. But someone paid the ransom price and freed you from that pointless way of living. You don't need to do that anymore. He's saying, you've been saved from that old way of living. You've been saved from hopelessness. You've been saved from running around trying to accomplish all of these things. Things that you never really could attain on your own. Saved from living for pleasures. Pursuing things that are empty. Saved from permanent separation from God. That's awesome. To be ransomed from that. Man, these people have really had it good. But what I want to do in the few minutes that we have left is just take a few minutes and explore, what was that ransom? And why does it make such a big difference for these people and for you? How are they ransomed? God ransomed them, and he ransoms us through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Let me just read through this passage again that Jared read so well just a few minutes ago. Knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things, such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you, who through him are believers in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and your hope are in God. You were ransomed. You were brought out of this cycle of living through what Jesus Christ did on the cross. Why is it so important to know that you were ransomed? Well, one of the reasons is so that you can know with confidence the hope that you have in him. Let me point out just a few quick things about the ransom. First of all, this: Christ's sacrifice was costly. Peter mentions that. He compares it to silver or gold. These were very valuable metals back then, and they are today. We call them precious metals, right? They're precious because they have such great value. And he said, you know what is really precious? It's the blood of Jesus Christ. You weren't purchased with perishable things. You weren't purchased with silver or gold, things that have some value. You were purchased with something that's priceless. The precious blood of Christ. Now imagine if I came and you were in a dire situation and your life was on the line and I really cared for you and I laid down my life for you. That just, maybe I pushed you away, a bus was coming towards you on the street and I just ran and pushed you out of the way, and then I got hit and, I just went flat as a pancake and just totally destroyed. My blood, right, would be pretty precious to you. You would remember that sacrifice that I made. You would honor that. You would treasure that, right? But I'm not that great of a person. I mean, what kind of a sacrifice really is it? I mean, I'm imperfect. I got my own problems and all of this. And, was my life really all that valuable? It is to you because I gave it for you and now you're living, right? It's connected to your life. But Peter is saying the blood that was shed for you, that's the blood of Jesus. That's the blood of the Son of God who came down and took on human flesh so that you might live. It was the perfect Son of God, and his blood is more precious than anything else. This ransom that was paid for you, it's not a suitcase full of dollars or hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. It's not that. It's the precious blood of Jesus, and there's nothing more valuable than that. You were ransomed with a sacrifice that was very costly. Christ's sacrifice was also something else. It was imperishable, he says. It was imperishable. He points out silver and gold, they perish. They have half-lives. Have you learned about that in chemistry yet? A half-life, it's the rate of decay to which any element has, and different metals and different elements have different half-lives. It takes longer for them to break down and decay. Well, these precious metals, they will go away. And even before the half-life, takes over, they can be taken away, right? Have you ever had anything stolen? Danny said she lost a ukulele a little while back. You have these precious things, and they can be taken away. You can have them at one moment, and then they're gone the next. That is not the way it is with Jesus. Unlike all of those things, Jesus' ransom that was made for you, that's permanent. It doesn't go away. You can't lose it. It never expires. What it accomplished for you, it can never be reversed. It was costly. It was imperishable. It was also perfect. We mentioned that already in passing. It says Jesus is like this perfect, spotless lamb. And if you know anything about the sacrificial system, back in the day, God had set it up so that people who sinned against him, they knew that the payment for their sin, it had to be paid in blood. It was supposed to be paid with their own blood. You sin against God, and you deserve death. That's what Romans says. The wages of sin is death. And so what they did, because God didn't want them to suffer the punishment for their sin, he set it up so that they would take a perfect, spotless lamb, one that was precious to them, one that had no stains on its wool, nothing was wrong, no broken legs, nothing wrong with, no weird looks, just kind of frowny lamb. This was perfect. This was the one you want to take home and you just want to cuddle. You want to make a movie about, right? And you take that lamb because it has a lot of value, because it's something that is precious to you, that's perfect, that you really wouldn't want to give up. You wouldn't want to trade this for anything. You take that one and you kill it, recognizing that that valuable thing that you're killing, that should have been you. And all of that was to point to Jesus, who was going to be the ultimate substitute for these people. And he says Jesus is like this lamb without blemish and without spot. He's the perfect sacrifice. There was nothing wrong with him. He didn't deserve to be put down, to be sold, to be gotten rid of at all. I mean, if you had Jesus' life, I mean, that is like, no one is better than that. Nothing is better. I mean, if you had Jesus as a friend, there's no better friend. It's just, he never did anything wrong against you. He's never done anything wrong against anybody. He's the perfect person, and he was the one who was sacrificed for you. The ransom, man. Costly, imperishable, perfect, and planned. It was planned. In verse 20, Peter says, Jesus was foreknown before the foundation of the world. Jesus' death on the cross, it wasn't plan B for you. It wasn't like God created these people and he's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? Well, we could do the animal sacrifice thing. Well, that's not really working. Well, maybe we'll send Jesus in as backup. No, this was plan A from the beginning. It was before the earth was set in place, before you were ever born, before you had ever had a thought, a breath, a heartbeat, before you could pursue any of these futile ways of living, any of these false hopes that are out there. He knew. He knew. He knew you would need a Savior. He knew that you were going to be a person who was going to run after all sorts of things, any direction except toward God, toward hoping in God. And he prepared, he planned in advance to send Jesus to be that perfect, imperishable ransom for you. How does that make you feel? Does it make you feel small? Inadequate? What about this? Does it make you feel loved? I think it should. Does it make you feel valuable? Does it make you feel blessed, protected, secure? In verse 21, Peter points out that all of this was done, he says, so that your faith and hope are in God. Jesus was a ransom for you so that your hope might be in God. Not in all these futile ways. Not in all these things that your forefathers, and all these people, your culture, your society, your friends, your politicians, maybe even your parents have bought into. Life sometimes feels like a losing battle. Because it is. It totally is. If your life is about pursuing comfort, pleasure, security here on earth, all sorts of different things that people are running after, and that's what their hope is in, man, you're fighting a losing battle. You will never win. I can, try to get my car in as good condition as I could possibly get it, and it is going to continue to let me down over and over again. I can try to build the perfect relationship with my daughter or with my wife, but you know what? There's sin that exists in them and in me, and it's going to erupt from time to time, and it is going to push us and pry us apart. I can't hope in that. I can't hope in my job. I can't hope in my relationships with you. I can't hope in my health. My health is fading. I'm 38 years old and I'm already seeing the signs of this thing decaying, and you see it too. I'm on my way. I better not put my hope in this thing. Yes, I should take care of this body that I have. I should take care of my family. Certainly, I should take care of the good physical, material things that God has given me because they're gifts from Him, and I'm called to steward them well. But my hope can't be in them. If my hope is in financial security, my hope is in personal pleasure, meaningful relationships, personal significance, or being the best that I can be, I am going to end on that. I'm going to end up on that endless treadmill, constantly running after something that I will never attain, that will never fulfill me, and that will never have any lasting meaning or value. When all other hopes fail, and they will, hope in God. Hope in God, who ransomed you with the precious, costly, imperishable, perfect, planned sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Lord, we thank you so much for your word. Thank you so much for this ransom that you have paid for us, that we might be rescued out of this futile way of living, that we might be brought near to you and know what is of true meaning and value and what has lasting effect on into eternity for our souls. We love you, Lord. Pray that you would help us to fight against the temptation to buy in to those futile ways, seeking hope apart from you, and that our attention would be solely on you. We love you. Thank you for this time we've had in Jesus' name.